Welcome back to This Side of 40. This is your girl Lou, and this will be just like a look through my eyes at my palettes I have in my collection currently. And I'm gonna start off with 1Juvia's place, mainly because I seen Judy's video and she's the book criminalist. I loved her video because she's been ranking her palettes, and I personally like getting ready to go until next year because this year's winding up. We're in September. I really wanted to go through and start playing with my palettes, and doing so I have been like swatching and touching and everything with my palettes. And first off, I wanted to start off with 1Juvia's place just because they are the brand for me that gives me the most pigmentation out of all my brands, and their color stories, each one of their palettes speak to me because they do work on my skin tone very well. However, there are a few that I'm like, So let's get into it. Starting off with the Nubian. This was my very first palette from 1Juvia's place. My youngest daughter bought it for me for Christmas, and it is beautiful. Now, this palette is perfect for the girl who likes neutrals. I personally am a neutral girl. However, I could see the need, the desire for this palette. This is my 11th, because I have 11 palettes. This is number 11 for me, just because I'm not a neutral girl. However, I can play with this palette with all my other palettes I have from 1Juvia's place and make it work. So it is number 11. Not saying anything negative about it. It's just the color story for me is not dead on. Then next is the Nubian III. And the Nubian III, she came in at 10. And the pinks that are in here, these peachy corally shades, and the silvers are the reason why she was able to make it to 10. However, she's still on that very neutral-y situation. And this shade right here, I'm not one of those people who wears the lighter matte on the lid. So that's the only reason why this made it to number 10. Otherwise, I would have bumped her up a little bit higher. However, I'm just not a neutral fan, so just take it for what it's worth with me. Then next was the Sahara. Now, the Sahara palette at number 9, it's not because of anything negative. I've only got to play with this one time, and it doesn't even like I touched her, but I did touch her. And this, the peach and the blue and this magenta in the middle, and this right here, this is a very light, like minty greeny kind of blue. I love these colors. I love all of the mattes down here, especially because this color here and this color here are colors I can use my transition every day. I love this color here because I can contour and use this on the eye. So I definitely love it. I just basically, all the palettes I got, I'm in love with. I don't have any negativity about it. Now, number 8, it's only number 8 because it is a neutral palette. However, don't take that for a bad thing, because the only shading here that I was like, girl, why? Is this shade here, and that's the shade Zaza, you know I'm saying it wrong. But that light shade here, I really need to start wearing, like I said, the lighter shade on the lid, and maybe I would see the purpose in that and throw a glitter on top. Maybe I would see the purpose for that. However, I've never gotten into that, so that's basically where my downfall is. And I'm definitely saying, like, if I had to do it all over again, this would have been the palette I used for my Penny Solitaire this year, because I could have used this palette with every eyeshadow palette in my collection and had looks for the full year. Now, this is not because she didn't perform good. The Nomad is my type of color story. I love, 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 love. This is my kind of ideal of like a neutral everyday, because this green right here, I love this shade down here. Now, this shade right here And this is the only one that doesn't have the names inside. But this shade down here, it's like a brown with an olive-y undertone. And when you pull off very orange, because my skin tone is very, very orange. I'm not red and I'm not yellow. I'm very orange. My undertone is orange or peach. And because of that, that shade right there on me in the transition area is amazing. Now, when I played with her, the little bit I played with her, I could just barely tap and get her going, and she was amazing. And that's the reason why I'm saying Juvia's Place is my favorite brand thus far. Not saying anything else about any other brands, because I haven't tried a lot of high-end brands. I just tried my first, like The Bomb, and tried Urban Decay and Kaja and London. I gotta remember the name of it, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm just now trying higher end brands, and this to me is still higher end because I usually only pay like maybe at max $5 for an eyeshadow palette. So that being said, just take it from like I'm still a makeup beginner, not to application, but to purchasing high-end items. Now, next is the Masquerade palette, and the Masquerade palette, girl, she looked beat up. This was my second palette, and honey, she had went through some things when she first got here. Me and her could not be separated. We was in love. But I can honestly say this palette right here, if you were with me at the beginning of my panning journey, that it's my Ray Ray palette. This has a lot of the same kind of color story, minus these blues and greens. Every other shade that's in here was this whole row right here, minus this row. This was pretty much that It's My Ray Ray palette. And all I would need is a black and like a deeper or some more shimmers, and this would be the same thing as my It's My Ray Ray palette. So I definitely love this palette. However, she is coming in at number number 6, just because these other palettes, they speak to your girl. I love colorful eyes. I'm just one of those people. Then the Afrique, I heard Judy's explanation. Like, she said this color study didn't speak to her like it does to me, and I think this particular palette would speak to you differently depending on the undertones in your skin and how fair or dark you are in complexion, because this little 6 shade area here spoke to me like no other. And then these 2 shimmer shades and this one here definitely were so fun. And this right here I used a few times as a highlight, and I got so many compliments on it that I could definitely see myself repurchasing this one if it ran out. Now let's get into the next one, Festival. Now Festival, I only had a little barely dap into her, and you can't even see where I dapped her, but I dapped her here and here, and those 2 shades are so pigmented that I thought I had dug too deep. And when it went on the eye, I was like, and I love that. I live for that. And especially orange and red, especially on my skin tone, sometimes it doesn't translate as well as it did in this. I'm with her. This shade right here, this one right here, is gonna make me want to use those lighter shades and top it with it. And I definitely could see myself doing that, and I could see maybe me changing my perception on nude eyeshadow with that particular palette. Now the Zulu, this particular palette, and she's number 3. That was number 4 for the festival, but number 3 right here at the Zulu, this whole row right here, if they could have just sent me this one row, I would have cried just to have this whole row. And then these rows here, especially this row, this is a whole eyeshadow look for me, and this is a whole eyeshadow look. And I could go back up the other way. I could go diagonal with this particular palette and create some looks, because that is the kind of eyeshadow girl I am. I will go back down, over, do a V. There's so many different looks in this palette for me that I could definitely tell you that if she was to drop and shatter, I would be in here crying. I would just lay on the floor and not go nowhere for the next 3 days. Now, the Warrior 2. This palette, I love this packaging. I love the gold lettering on the bottom. I love how it has the little shiny sheer thing on it so you can keep it cleaner. I love the model they chose to put on here. I just love everything about it. And my mom owns some of these jewelry pieces and those kind of earrings, so I think they're beautiful. And I definitely could tell you that this particular palette right here speaks to me. This speaks to me on so many levels. I definitely can say she would pair with the Warrior palette, the other one, really well, because she is very colorful and that one is very neutral, and the two of them together would be amazing. But this one right here, from me, I could do these 2 shades and top a little bit of this on the inner corner or whatever, and that's a look for me. These 2 shades come across with her and throw her on the lid, amazing. I definitely am going to say I definitely am in love. But my number 1 palette is the Tribes palette. Now, the Tribes palette was my desired palette most of all, mainly because I love green, and I love green and orange together with a good shimmer. And this whole row of shimmers with this orangey shimmer right here, amazing, amazing, truly amazing. And then these 2 greens out here on the outer corners, when you build them up together, that is an amazing look. And then this green right here is what I call a true evergreen. That is the most rich, deep green. And with that color, you don't have to have a black to smoke out your look. This right here, this palette can be worn for a daytime look, a nighttime look, a vacation look. This is just, you could even wear this to a wedding. It is that beautiful. And these 2 colors here, these 2 mattes, and this orange here, honey, this, if I had to, like, okay, I'm gonna give up all my other palettes, I will be holding on to this one, and I will want them to put it in the coffin with me, because this one kills me every time. Every time I pick it up, I am completely happy. I can pick it up and say, here goes 100 looks right away. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the link below, and I'll see you guys next time on this side of 40.